our elected leaders trying to get a bill passed that's the unthinkable. If this bill passes, I am going to ask you to leave the state of California. For years, we've been telling you about bad bills that they've been doing. This takes the cake. Watch how they'll say, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That can't be true. That's not what it means. Oh, you watch and see.
A horrific bill just hit the books in California and is set to become law. And this bill essentially would legalize human trafficking, leaving us with only one conclusion, that the author of this bill is none other than Satan! And there's one other inevitable conclusion. The Democrats that proposed this bill, well,
you need Jesus.
I want to talk about it today. My name is Reed Uberman. Thanks so much for taking the time to check out this podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Today on the show, I'm going to try to give Christian arguments for cultural events because we're living in an age of bad ideas. And the only cure for bad ideas are good ideas. And the best ideas are found in God's Word. They are time-tested and approved. And I'll try to give an argument for that today on the show. Before I do that, I want to let you know that this show may seem effortless. It may seem amazing to you. Mostly I agree with my wife and kids. Huge fans they are. But honestly, if you've received anything from this show, I want you to know that this show isn't easy to make, and it takes the support of people like our friends over at Sweet and Savory. These guys have been consistent, awesome supporters of the show, and I want you to go and support their business. So if you're looking for an online or in-person cooking class experience, you need to go to sweetandsavoryclassroom.com. There you can find a host of online content where you can access how to make some of the most amazing food that you've ever seen in your life, or you can find a way to go to their in-person cooking class experience. In order to do that, you need to look at their calendar, check out their schedule, and see what they have coming up. It's great for a date night, it's great for a group event or an outing, or even if you're just dating you, yourself, and I, because you're trying to give yourself a little self-care. Whatever you're up to, Sweet and Savory can help you make some of the most amazing food and teach you to be a whiz in the kitchen. So in order to see all that they have to offer, go to sweetandsavoryclassroom.com, and before you check out, use the promo code IndieThinker to let them know that we sent you. Now, you've maybe never heard of the term child recycling, but child recycling is well known to ICE and CBP agents because child recycling is the act of taking a child that doesn't belong to you and trying to cross the border with that child. In other words, you're taking somebody else's family and recycling that family to try to help you get into the country. And unfortunately, this is far too common at our southern border. Just recently, in 2019, Fox released a story about a Honduran man who tried to enter the country with a toddler. He was with a group of other people who also had unaccompanied minors with them. This man in particular, when they fingerprinted him, they found that he had tried to sneak into the country illegally twice before and had been sent back. And when that showed up on the system, they then did a DNA test on the man and on the baby, and they found out that the baby was no relation to the man whatsoever. Now, he gave some story as to where the baby came from, but we have no idea where that baby actually came from, and we likely have no idea where that baby is to this day. Now, when we see that this is a common occurrence, and even if you read the story, you'll see that this is something that happens far too often at our southern border, we are often told by Democrats that we need to remember that Jesus was a refugee and an asylum seeker after all, and the Bible tells us to love the stranger. Obviously, you're a bad Christian if you don't believe in open borders immigration so that we can allow human trafficking to take place, is kind of the idea I think that they're trying to get across. And if I'm to be as charitable as possible, I think there are some people who are just morally, I guess, misguided enough to think that it's a great idea to allow open borders immigration or to allow undocumented immigrants into this country because of some bleeding heart liberalism somewhere deep inside of them. However, I think if we'll take just a moment to actually dig into the facts, we'll see very clearly that open borders immigration is actually very dangerous and opens the door wide open for human trafficking. And I feel no compunction to be charitable here, so I'm going to say it sure seems that the Democrats actually don't really have a problem with that whatsoever, or at least the Democrats in California, because they just released their newest bill, AB 495, and this is an attempt to try to make sure that unaccompanied minors who come through the border or minors who come into the country with family and then the family has to be deported, that these minors can go into the care of a complete stranger. Now, before I reveal this story to you, I want to warn you. You're not going to believe that what I'm about to tell you is true. It's going to strain the limits of your credulity. And I would pray that you don't let your incredulity get in the way. Because I assure you that this bill is just as tragic, horrific, and debased as you could possibly imagine, which unfortunately is far too common for Democrats in this day and age. But I want to allow Jack Hibbs over at Calvary Chapel to be the one to tell you about AB 495. So here's that.
Our elected leaders are right now trying to get a bill passed that's the unthinkable. For years, we've been telling you about bad bills that they've been doing. This takes the cake. It is so bad you won't believe me if I told you the details of this bill. You will not believe it. In fact, on Sunday when I make the official announcement, just watch the media. Watch how they'll say, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That can't be true. That's not what it means. Oh, you watch and see. So Gavin Newsom and his buddies up there have crafted Assembly Bill 495. Go do some research on it, 495. You can start by going to the Real Impact, by the way, realimpact.us website. This bill, AB 495, 100% strips parents of their parental rights. It allows an individual to obtain this new form that comes with the bill. They can download it, they can get it mailed to them, they can go pick it up. They fill it out, and they can name a child. So let's say Susie Q. So John goes to a school in California and says, I have this form, and I am asking for Susie Q to be put into my, to be received into my custody. I want to take her out of school. Watch this. The bill does not require a background check for this man, requires no identification, no driver's license, no nothing. Here it is. Hang on. There's no requirement in the bill for the school to call you to ask you if it's okay if John takes your daughter out of school. It is literally being called by opponents of it, I'm one of them, the California legislature trafficking bill. It's a meat market bill. It is a trafficking bill.
Now, even after my warning and after hearing what you just heard, you may still be incredulous. You may think to yourself, there's no way that there are a group of people, a political party in America today that would allow for a bill like this to be passed into a law, which essentially would just open the gates wide open for human trafficking. But I assure you, Democrats are this debased because the law says this. The broad definition of caregiver allows for adults, including non-relatives who have a, quote, mentoring relationship or connection to a relative, to assume temporary caregiving via a caregiver's authorization affidavit. No parental signature, notarization, court approval, or background check is required at all. Now, maybe you're still saying, well, what is this mentorship relationship? I'm sure there's got to be some really stringent regulations to qualify as a mentor of an unaccompanied minor at our southern border, or a minor that's in the United States that whose family has been deported. What can we do to make sure that this child can be taken care of? Well, here the bill will get a little bit more granular for us. And so a caregiver can be anyone who is an adult 18 years or older who lives with the minor. It can be a relative with 5 degrees of kinship, including spouses of such relatives. Now, I don't know why we're playing this little pedantic game of 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever, because actually, as we go further down the list, you'll see that there really is no qualifications whatsoever to be considered a caregiver or mentor. So it can be an established familial relationship with a relative of the child, or it can be a familial or mentoring relationship with the child. That could be a teacher, a counselor, medical professional, clergy, neighbor, or just a family friend. So in other words, all you have to do to grab a hold of a kid at our southern border is to say that you're a family friend or a mentor, and then to take ownership of this child, custody of this child. You need the minor's name, you need their date of birth, which, by the way, a minor coming through our southern border, you can just make up their date of birth because we don't have any papers to qualify how old they are at all. So you need their name and their date of birth, which could all be made up. And then you need your own name, your date of birth, and you need a home address, and you need a California driver's license, and boom, you become the brand new owner of a child at our southern border.
What?
Now, I hope at this point in time we can be done with the formalities and we can just say something very, very simple. If you are a Christian and you are still making the argument that you don't get involved in politics, you just want to focus on Jesus and the Word of God, then you are clearly blind to what is happening right before you. It has been said a million times, but maybe it needs to be said yet again. We're not talking about purely a political battle because of the way the left in America today has moved into the realm of the religious. So the political becomes the religious when we're talking about moral issues like this bill in California. And as a Christian, there is no such thing as a non-political Christian or non-moral Christian when it comes to issues like this. You should have an opinion. More importantly, you should have an action, which is outrage and doing everything within your power to make sure that this bill does not become a law. We can no longer hide behind conscientiousness and being in the holy middle so that we get totally sidelined on issues that demand people of conscience to act. So it's time for us to quit using ridiculous claims like, I'm not political. Because if you're a Christian, you better be at least moral. And if you are moral, then you have an obligation to stand up whenever there is injustice in any form that it comes in. Now, the second thing is this. So we can get really super granular and really specific. No, a Christian should not be a Democrat. Can you be a Christian and fully deceived? Yes, of course, because the devil is good at his work. But if you are paying attention, if you're fully awake, and if you're a God-fearing man or woman, then you have no business ever calling yourself a Democrat.
Yep.
This does not deny the fact that there are evil Republicans, and even that Donald Trump does things that I don't like from time to time. Yes, I know, shocking. Because people are people. It only suggests that if you are spending any amount of time digging into Republicans and you never talk about what Democrats are doing when it is way more horrific, then you are just dishonest, you're a liar, or you're not a Christian whatsoever, and you're deceived and your faith is false. The only kind of people in our political atmosphere today who fight for the kind of bills that we see in California are Democrats. There's not a single Republican standing around saying, this is a really wise bill that we should enact. It's only Democrats who do this kind of stuff. And it is why there is no excuse for a Christian to ever identify with the Democratic Party, which is why I have to bring up something else that's kind of current in the news today. When you hear Democrats talk about Epstein and the Epstein files, and they're beside themselves of the hypocrisy that they see with Donald Trump and the way that he treats women, please know that these Democrats do not care at all about human trafficking or child trafficking. They actually affirm it. They're the ones who are trying to get drag queens in schools to sexualize children. They're the ones who were fighting for sexually explicit books to be on library shelves so that the kiddies could talk about the strap-ons. They are the ones who absolutely want to sexualize and, frankly, make our culture more demonic. They do not care about Epstein. They just likely know, and this is a supposition that I'm going to throw out there, they likely know that there really isn't much to the Epstein files, so Donald Trump really can't show much. Therefore, they're jumping on this bandwagon because they know that there's nothing to show, and they're going to try to breathe life into the story as much as they can. But they did not care about Epstein during his heyday before his suicide or after his suicide. They don't care at all about Epstein now, trust me. They only care about one thing, and that is power. Now, I just did something the other day. I watched a news segment with Chris Hayes, and he was talking about the Epstein files. Now, afterwards, I had to cleanse my soul from all unrighteousness. I had to go take a shower, and I wouldn't necessarily encourage you to descend into the depths of hell in order to get this kind of information. But I listened to Chris Hayes and heard him talk about the Epstein files and was beside myself with how many lies was told in just like about 5 minutes. It is undeniable that these Democrats do not care at all about sexual ethics, sexual morals, or actually doing what is right by children. They're the ones who are implementing the kind of bills that you see in California, and it is not Republicans. And I want to play a little game with you to kind of illustrate this to the best of my ability. And we'll call it If I Were the Devil. So if I were the devil, I would convince a generation that materialistic realities don't really matter. You know, your material body, it's just a thing, and you can redefine it based upon a feeling. I would redefine definitions because I knew if I could fight for those definitions, then I could totally redefine what is up, what is down, what is right, what is left. Maybe even I could argue that a girl like Sydney Sweeney, although something I don't really advocate for because I don't like the objectification of women, but I could argue that ad was ugly, even though it is objectively a beautiful girl that's in that ad. And then I could try to destroy beauty and say that body positivity is actually beautiful and people like Lizzo are beautiful. So I could fight for the redefinition of terms because if I do that, then I can redefine everything: beauty, truth, and goodness. And I would redefine what the family looks like. In fact, I would go full force against patriarchy. I would call it toxic. I would encourage a group of women that actually sexual liberation is the way to truly pursue freedom, not to actually settle down, get married, and to start a family. In fact, I would say that you don't even need a man in your life. You can raise those kids all on your own. And then I would convince a group of men to buy into the bargain that women don't need men, and that actually the organ between your legs and not the one between your ears is way more important, and that sexual conquest makes you a real man. And inevitably, when you face the consequences of your dumb decisions, rather than take ownership of those things, I would encourage you to believe that real manhood is going online and whining about the state of modern women. But if I were the devil, I'd convince men and women to continue down this road simply so that I could find a generation of children ripe for the picking. Boys in homes without dads being raised by women with a chip on their shoulder. And those worn out women who have to go to work every single day would ship off their kids to a public school system that would then raise their kids more than they do. So these complete strangers could have full autonomy to take over and to teach these kids whatever they wanted to teach them. And when inevitably these especially young boys react and respond to the fact that they have no dads in the home and women with a chip on their shoulder raising them, I would tell the parent, I would say, Mom, your child has ADHD and they need to be prescribed some pills. And I would make sure those kids take those pills so that they could be subdued and docile and then easier to control. If I were the devil, I would encourage all of this because I know that if I can get a hold of the next generation by destroying the family, by redefining all terms, I would know that I could do whatever I wanted for future generations to come. And you know what's funny about all of the things that I just said to you? They are all tentpoles of the Democratic Party. They're all platforms or talking points of the Democratic Party, or at least they are realities that the Democratic Party uses to enhance and to increase their power in the land. They absolutely love the fact that nuclear families are being extinguished because then the government becomes more necessary. And of course, they want bigger government. This is why Hillary Clinton went around saying it takes a village to raise a family rather than it takes a mom and a dad to raise a family. God's prescription is better than all of it. And we only have two options in the present. Sorry, libertarians, Republican or Democrat. And unless you're willing to start a third party, I don't know, maybe a party that believes that Christians should be serious about implementing their moral values and ideas in the culture, maybe creating a nation that is a Christian nation. Maybe you might call that party a Christian nationalist party. Unless you're willing to create that third party, which I would get behind. I might call it the Christian Reform Party, but nonetheless, unless you're willing to create that third party, we only have two options, and the choice is clear. But even outside the political, I don't want to miss an opportunity to discuss this simple fact. Beyond all of our candidates and even people like Donald Trump who are great at punching back, and I think that that's an important lesson for all Christians everywhere, that we need to fight and stand, and that we need to make sure that we're not allowing evil to go unchecked in the land. But even outside of all of that, I would just argue a simple fact that God's prescription for reality is better than any man's. Now, I know we can have discussions about the way in which we perceive what that prescription is and how we interpret Scripture, but the truth is that most of that is purely to obscure the point. We understand some basic facts that honestly Democrats don't, and that's that a family is a man and a woman raising their biological children in a home. And if something happens and that's not possible, a man and a woman adopting children and raising those kids in the home. This is God's prescription for the family, and it is better than any newfangled, debased way that we try to redefine anything, whether it's in the form of AB 495 or in the form of modern sexual ethics. God's way is best. And I want to leave you with this truth in the form of Jeff Allen giving his acceptance speech for the NFL Hall of Fame, because I think it truly encapsulates what we need to be about if we're going to be serious about reform. And it shows the heart of a father for his kids. Check it out.
Through this process, the word legacy has been talked about a lot. The Hall often says they're here to tell my story. Well, I'm here to tell you too, you are my greatest accomplishments. When I get called home to heaven one day, if all they talk about is this gold jacket, my career, then I failed miserably as a father, a husband, and a friend. You two are my legacy. You are both so talented, and I cannot wait to see what you decide to do and to conquer this world. So always put Christ first, find your why, dream big dreams, and always pursue greatness in whatever you do. Thank you all, and may God bless you all.
Suffice to say, we need more dads like that, which also leads me to one final thing that I think I need to add. If I were the devil, the one thing I would try to do more than anything else is to attack fathers and to try to redefine what a father is, because a father on this earth is supposed to be one of the greatest representations of who God is in heaven. Jesus even taught us to pray, "Our Father who art in heaven." And if I could attack fathers, then I could skew people's representation and understanding of who God is and what his nature is really all about. And if I could do that, I could hurt the people that God loves the most. And so I would say, if you truly care about people, it's time we started standing for truth. We started defending the family and understood our role in it. And we make no excuses for following God's prescription for the family. More importantly, that we make sure that whenever we see the kind of evil that wants to redefine the family and anybody that's associated with it, that we reject and resist them. And I guess most of all, that we never take a middle position on issues that God has demanded that we take a strong moral stance on. Because if you ask which side I'm on, I don't want to be on right or left, and I certainly don't want to be in the middle. I actually just want to be on the side that best represents God's side. And the choice for that is clear. All right, thanks so much for watching. If this show was beneficial to you, then you'll love becoming a member over at indiethinker.org/support, where seriously, you can gain access to exclusive perks like ebooks, movies, documentaries, and so much more that will help you take your Christian worldview to the next level. If you want to be a tool for good, if you want to be a tool for God in the culture, then you need to sharpen your mind and your understanding of these issues. And becoming a member over at indiethinker.org/support can help you do exactly that. Don't forget to check out the sponsors down below in the description of this podcast, but most importantly, go with God.